and welcome to Chapel Allerton Pilates and Stanley, our skeleton. I want to show you some basic bony landmarks in your body to help you to make the most out of the classes when you join us. We help you to find your way through the movements by cueing you by bony landmarks. So it's really important you've got a bit of an idea. So one of the first things that we're going to look at is your collarbone. We all know where our head is, this is fairly straightforward, but your collarbones run across the front of your chest, above your ribs and above your sternum. And you can feel those little knobbles that are sticking out here. You can feel them in yourself just to know where they are. And they come and there's a little joint to either side where they meet your sternum. And it comes down, sometimes we would call it breastbone. And then from your breastbone you have your ribs, and your ribs actually go all the way around. They come all the way around and they dovetail into your spine. So when we get our ribs moving, we get our spine moving. So they're really important. And then at the back and side of your collarbones, we've actually got your shoulder blades. And your shoulder blades on Stanley, his shoulder blades are screwed in, because if they weren't screwed in, his arms would fall off. Because in us, our shoulder blades are actually the most mobile bone in our bodies. They aren't screwed on or fixed to our ribs. I know sometimes it feels that way, but they're not really. They are the most mobile bone and they move all over your ribs in lots of different directions. And the front of your shoulder blade, just below where it meets your collarbone, is actually your arm socket. It's called the glenohumeral joint, but you don't need to remember any of that. It's just understanding that your shoulder blade forms part of your arm socket. So for our arm to move, our shoulder blades need to be able to move to prevent injury. So that's really important. And I'm going to encourage you to just give yourself a bit of a hug just now to feel the edges of your shoulder blade. So when you hug like that, you can feel those outer edges of your shoulder blades. So that's really, really important. Great. Then, of course, we have all the vertebrae of your spine. So I'm going to turn you around, Stanley. And you can see that there's an inward curve at the top, outward curve here between your shoulder blades, and an inward curve in your lower back. And we're looking for ideally quite even balanced curves, that one's not hugely more pronounced than another. And doing the Pilates movements brings them back into balance. The bottom of your spine, you've got your sacrum, and we definitely talk about that a lot, so it's good to know where that is. So you can feel that just by putting your hand like a cup shape just at the base of your spine, just between your buttocks there. And that's 4 or 5 fused vertebrae. So they are like the vertebrae of your spine, but they're joined. And then beneath it, we've got your tailbone, and it does move, it does have a joint, so you can wag your tail. Only joking, I mean, maybe you can. And then around the side and the front, we've got the rest of your pelvis. So your sacrum is part of your pelvis, and these curved bones here are part of your pelvis. And the main thing that we would talk about is your hip bones, the bony bits, and you can feel for those on yourself, the bony knobbly bits that stick out furthest most at the front of your pelvis. And then you've got your pubic bones where they come together, and that's got a joint as well. It's jointed there, you can see the cartilage. So the pelvis is meant to move. That's why there's jointed areas. There's the joints at the base of your spine and at your sacroiliac joints at the back, which you might know about, this sort of dimply area in here. So it's not one solid chunk, not one solid piece in the middle of your body. It's meant to move and support you, and your center of gravity is in there at the back of your pelvis, so it's really, really important. Then, of course, we've got our hip sockets, so I'm going to get you to find those. We'll often say things like stand with your feet hip socket width apart. Your hips aren't out here, your sockets, this is the outside. Your sockets, if you take your first two fingers to just where your groin is, bend and stretch there, and your fingers just follow inwards, that's where your hip socket is. So it's quite a lot narrower often than we think that it is. Really important that we know that. Last little landmark here on the pelvis is your sitting bones. The sticky out bits, the knobbly bits at the base of your pelvis. And to find those, just take a little squat for me and just feel into your bottom where the most sticky out knobbly bit is there. That's your sitting bone. So again, quite narrow, same distance roughly as your hip sockets. So it's important to know. We do talk about sit bones a lot because lots of muscles attach into there that often get tight from sitting. So if you sit a lot and you're a bit tucked in like that, we need to know where our sit bones are to be able to lengthen them out. Then, of course, we've got our thigh bone. We call that your femur. We do talk about femurs a lot. There's even movements that are named by the bone. So we do a movement called femur arcs. So it's important you know where they are. Then, of course, we've got the lower leg, your feet and your ankles. And you can see Stanley's foot here. There's a lot of bones in there. Same number of bones in your feet as in your hands. So in actual fact, we should be very flexible and very mobile in our feet and in our hands. So if you wear shoes a lot, or if you do desk-based work where you're using keyboard and a mouse and that sort of thing, where you're just stiffly doing the same sort of movement, your hands and your feet definitely need to get a lot of mobility in them. And that will help the health of all the neighbouring joints if they're really mobile and pliable. So that's Stanley and you. Now you know some of these basic bony landmarks and the arrangement of your body. It's really going to help you to get the most out of your class. And I will look forward to seeing you in one soon. Bye everyone.